I need to understand how it's okay for American citizens to be profiled, to be detained, even though they're not undocumented immigrants, for American children to be zip-tied.
American citizens are not being profiled.
That is exactly what's happening right now.
They're being asked if they are being asked
if they are undocumented. Do you walk around with your
38 members of a gang were arrested? I understand that everybody on the show loves to talk about this.
I think that you're making excuses for an administration that's raining terror on ordinary American citizens.
As I grow and mature as someone who works in the news industry, I have learned that one thing that I just detest, one thing that I hate in the political world is maximalism, whether it's from the left or the right. And what we're seeing right now on the streets of Chicago, what we had seen on the streets of Los Angeles, and in all these blue cities that the Trump administration is sending federalized National Guard troops to, is maximalist policy that I suspect is meant to be retaliatory against Trump's political opponents. And there are political consequences, certainly for Trump and the Republicans, but I would venture to say there are also political consequences for the American people as a whole, because we keep swinging back and forth like a pendulum from one extreme to another. So let's talk a little bit about Trump's immigration policies, because it is true that Trump was elected, he received the popular vote because Americans were concerned about three main things. Number one, the economy. Number two, immigration. Number three, crime. Poll after poll showed that to be the case. But I would also venture to say that Americans didn't sign up to be terrorized by a maximalist immigration policy that greenlights ICE agents to essentially do whatever they want in these municipalities. So let's get into the details, because following outrage over an overnight raid in Chicago, where ICE agents dragged crying adults, screaming children out of every single apartment unit, by the way, many of whom were Americans, Trump has decided, you know what, I'm gonna go further. There's been backlash to this. I'm going to send National Guard troops. And in fact, when there's backlash from state and local politicians, I'm gonna threaten them with imprisonment. Even if you voted for Trump and you wanted something to be done about immigration, about undocumented people in the United States, I doubt you signed up for this. And if you did, I really want you to just stop for a minute and ask yourself, how did I convince myself, how did I allow myself to be persuaded into thinking it is okay for my fellow Americans to be treated like this? And also ask yourself, who benefits from dividing Americans the way we've been divided over the last several decades? Because our lives have gotten worse. But select few are doing real well and just keep getting richer, don't they? So let's break it down. So after that, pre-dawn raid happened, you have the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker, and Chicago's mayor, Brandon Johnson, essentially coming out and criticizing the Trump administration. And in response, the Trump administration is saying, well, maybe you need to go to prison. I'll get to that post by the president in just a moment. But before we do, here's the raid that I'm referring to.
In Chicago, in the middle of the night, federal agents stormed an apartment building. Black Hawk helicopters, flashbangs, military-style trucks, all used in the raid. Now, witnesses say everyone was detained, no matter their status. Children were zip-tied together, separated from their parents. And the feds say that they arrested dozens of gang members.
Now, look, I'm gonna be honest and I'm gonna be fair. So the federal government claims that 37 people, many of whom were Tren de Aragua gang members, were arrested from that apartment building. And if that is proven to be true, good. I want them arrested and I want them deported. I don't care. I get that people on the left think that that's the most egregious thing I could possibly say, but I would also respond to them and ask, how the hell did it get so bad that there were 37 Tren de Aragua gang members in a single apartment building? Seriously. But look, honestly, at this point, the federal government has been caught in lie after lie, including some lies about a woman that an ICE agent shot at 5 times. She got hospitalized. Their story keeps changing. They claimed that she was armed with a firearm. Later on, it turns out she didn't have a firearm at all. So I don't know what to believe. I don't know what to trust. But for the moment, let's take what the feds are saying at face value, that they arrested 37 people, many of whom were Tren de Aragua gang members. I'm gonna take that at face value just for the sake of this conversation. Good. With all of the additional funding that's been provided to Border Patrol and to ICE in particular, they didn't have the resources necessary to do a targeted raid. They had to terrorize American citizens who were sleeping soundly in their apartments before the sun had even risen. And if you're okay with that as an American citizen, why? Why do you hate your fellow Americans so much? Why do you think they deserve that? You think it's okay to zip tie American children together? What is this? This is gross maximalist policy. It's the other side of the far left coin that says, no, there's no Tren de Aragua, it's okay. Who cares? Let's just ignore it. I loathe it, I hate it. It's the sign of a dysfunctional, stupid government. So that raid led to Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, who honestly, I've got a lot of criticism of, but nonetheless, he's attempting at least to prevent ICE from using city property as staging grounds for their raids. Now, as we all know, the federal government supersedes state and local government. But nonetheless, here's what Brandon Johnson had to say after that raid took place.
The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids. ICE cannot enter establishments without a valid warrant. Private entities may voluntarily choose to display signage to designate their property as part of a citywide network of community spaces that stand together in affirming the safety, dignity, and belonging of all of our residents.
And now President Donald Trump, in response to that, is calling for the imprisonment of both Governor J.B. Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson. He wrote this morning on Truth Social, Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers, Governor Pritzker also. So there is a lie percolating all over the internet about how local police in Chicago issued stand down orders as ICE agents were being attacked by protesters. There have been protesters in front of an ICE building in Chicago, and there is no evidence that the Chicago police issued a stand down order. In fact, the superintendent of police gave a press conference in which he made abundantly clear that if federal agents are being harmed in any way, that the Chicago police will defend them, will protect them. And people have already been arrested as a result of, engaging in unlawful, illegal, violent behavior. And they should be. I'm not at all against the protests. I think you should be free to protest, but you're not free to assault people, including ICE agents, regardless of how much you hate what the Trump administration is doing with their immigration policies. But Trump is using that lie as the excuse to send federalized National Guard troops to these municipalities, even though local leaders, even though the state's politicians didn't ask for it, don't want it, and in fact have said repeatedly that this is escalating the situation, but that's what Trump wants. And that's the problem here, that this isn't actually about making the lives of Americans better. This is about theater. This is about retaliation and intimidation against Trump's political opponents. And this is about, in my opinion, normalizing the use of the military on US soil. Trump is at war with Americans right now. Okay, he has said out loud, this was on the same day that Pete Hegseth gave that fat shaming speech to our military. That same day Trump gave a speech where he talked about how our military should use blue cities, liberal cities, as training grounds. He's launching a war against our fellow Americans, guys. And that's not okay. It's not okay regardless of the political affiliation of the person doing it. I'd be outraged if, I mean, I can't imagine Biden doing this, but if Biden did it, if Biden said, I'm sending federalized troops over to, I don't know, some city in Mississippi, to Alabama, whatever, to terrorize them, I would be really angry about it. And it just upsets me that we're at a point in this country where we're so divided and both sides seem to hate each other so much that it's almost like Americans don't see the other side as human at this point. And that kind of hatred will lead to the fall of the United States. Because if we don't have at least some level of respect for each other as Americans, we're in a lot of trouble. We've been in a lot of trouble, to be honest with you. So Pritzker, Governor Pritzker, responded to Trump's message on Truth Social. He replied on X saying, I will not back down. Trump is now calling for the arrest of elected representatives, checking his power. What else is left on the path to full-blown authoritarianism? But Governor Pritzker, here's the question I have for you. As if he's ever gonna see this, but if you do, I'd love an answer. How did it get to a point where someone like Donald Trump gets the popular vote? Is it because those top 3 issues, according to the polling, wasn't being adequately addressed by Democrats? Because I remember in the lead up to the 2024 election, when all those stories were coming out about the Tren de Aragua gang members in that apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado, Democrats were in full denial, thinking if we just deny it, maybe the problem will go away. Well, the problem didn't go away. In fact, there was retaliation from the electorate to the point where Trump won re-election and secured the popular vote. So my question to people like JB Pritzker is, how did it get so bad that 37 people who are allegedly Tren de Aragua gang members were living inside a single apartment building? How about you govern your city and state? It's so frustrating to me because someone like Trump doesn't come into power out of nowhere. And unless the Democratic Party take ownership of its own failures and recalibrate as it moves forward, this is only gonna get worse. Like, what am I supposed to support here? Like, who are the good guys here? I know who the bad guys are. I know who the ineffective, negligent politicians are. And you think Brandon Johnson doesn't love the opportunity to position himself as a strong opponent, a protector of the people living in Chicago? It's just, I can't stand any of this. And the people suffering right now are literally children who are being zip tied and American citizens who are being profiled. I don't walk around with immigration papers. I don't walk around with identification proving I'm an American citizen. But there have been now dozens of cases of Americans who keep getting detained simply because of the way they look. I'll give you a specific example. One of them, this was a story out of Long Island. So this guy in Long Island gets pulled over. He's in his early 20s, early to mid 20s. He gets pulled over, American citizen, born in the United States. So an ICE agent pulls him over. He's like, yeah, can I help you? Well, like, why are you pulling me over? ICE agent tells him, you look like someone we're looking for, and then proceeds to ignore all of the subsequent questions. So at that point, there's no probable cause, there's no reasonable suspicion of any wrongdoing. And the driver just decides, I'm not gonna cooperate. I'm not gonna give you I'm not giving you my ID. Who are you? Why are you stopping me? I'm an American citizen. He ends up getting detained for over an hour. And that's one of the better stories that I've read. In Los Angeles, an American citizen was put in a prison, or a jail, I should say, for almost a week. Okay, again, born in America. So why are we okay with this? Is this what we signed up for? Is this what people signed up for? I don't think so. So look, in that same X thread, featuring JB Pritzker's views, comments, and response to Donald Trump, he made reference to the terror that ICE is instilling in his state, which is actually true. Why is ICE using Black Hawk helicopters on US soil in the middle of an immigration raid? Do we really need all that? Flashbangs, breaking through windows, busting down doors of every single apartment unit, every single one. And look, Republican voters for the most part are in favor of this, and it makes me really sad to say that. But Trump is losing support. Republicans are losing support, and that midterm election is gonna come up real quick. So let me give you a little taste of what a new Times Siena survey says. Shows that the majority of voters think that the Trump administration is deporting mostly the right people. But they also say that the process has been unfair. So 51% said that they thought the government was deporting mostly people who should be deported, while 42% said the government was deporting the wrong people. But more than half of voters, 53%, think the process of deporting people has not been fair. 44% said it was mostly fair. A similar share, 52%, disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration. 46% approve, and 51% said his actions around immigration enforcement had gone too far. That might not seem like, oh wow, it's like a blowout loss for Trump on the issue of immigration. But you have to remember, he came in with a very high approval rating when it came to his immigration policies. So he's only lost support since then. And it's been what, like 7 months? No. 9 months. Man, this year is going by fast. But anyway, I'm not necessarily against ICE doing targeted raids where they find the bad guys, especially if they're gang members, and they deport them. I have no problem with that. When you have received an insane amount of taxpayer money, by the way, in an environment where the country is drowning in debt, I would say you have the resources to do your job appropriately. So Congress set aside roughly $170 billion for immigration enforcement and border security efforts through the legislation, the big beautiful bill. That's the legislation that's being referenced, including $75 billion in extra funding for ICE. So you're telling me that they're unable to do targeted raids and instead they have to terrorize every single person who was living in that apartment building? Come on. Seems like we're talking about a government agency that's drunk on power, doesn't really care about the safety or well-being of American citizens. And when there's backlash, rightfully so, Trump uses that as an excuse to send in federalized National Guard troops. This administration doesn't give a damn about you. And even with all this theater, even with all this nonsense going on, Obama still deported more people than Trump did, or has so far. This is just, it's disgusting, it's egregious, I absolutely hate it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.